Well, thank you. Thank you again for allowing me in your space. The city has been great to me. I see the camaraderie, the continuity in the city, so I'm glad that Christina saw that I was fit to be able to come in your space and share. I played 13 years in the NBA and had a great career. And at the end of my career, I was going into my 13th season, and I had a real battle with my mental health, which made me retire from the game that I love, my dream job. And so I'm gonna share a little bit about that, but because I'm amongst clinicians and teachers, I have to let you know how much I respect you, how much I appreciate you. There has been so many teachers who have unlocked me at different points in my life when I was going through different things, when my emotions weren't intact, and they have been part of some things in me that really have changed my life. So thank you for the work that you do with our kids. I don't think you get enough credit, enough appreciation. So I want to let you know I see you, I appreciate you, and thank you for all the work that you do for our next generation. I really all the clinicians in here, I think you all have superpowers. I think you know that there's specialists in everything you do. I go to some of the best dentists in the world when I need a root canal, or I have to get an implant, and I go see a specialist. I have degenerative hips, and so I go see the best hip people. But when my heart, when my head, when my emotions aren't in order, I think clinicians, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists are the places that you go, right? And so I think you guys work wonders with your superpowers. And so thank you for all the work that you do. So I wanted to really start out by saying that. I'm a former athlete, and when I used to do something well, I used to get high fives, pats on the backside, and applause. And so now when I pay the mortgage, or when I drop the kids off early, or if I cook dinner, I'm like, wait, where's the applause? Where's the applause? And it just doesn't happen. So thank you for the applause. I really appreciate that. All right, so let's get to it. So at the height of my career, I was going into my 13th season. I was playing for my dream team, the Boston Celtics. I was playing for my favorite coach of all time. I was playing with some of the best players that our game has ever seen. I had probably 4 Hall of Famers on my team: Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Rajon Rondo, and Doc Rivers, of course, was our wonderful coach. And so I was doing some charity work with a teammate of mine, Avery Bradley. We used to go around to each one of our communities and give back, do free camps, do free clinics, bring resources to our community. And so we were out in Seattle, Washington, and we went to a restaurant after we went back to one of our teammates' neighborhood. As I go to the restroom, I was touched inappropriately in the restroom at 32 years old. And I remember that moment asking the man who touched me inappropriately, like, hey, who do you think you are that you can touch me like this? But do you see in me that you would touch me like this? And do you know I can hurt you real bad? I said some curse words, but do you know that I can hurt you real bad with my bare hands? And I walked out of the restroom, and went to the table and shared what had just happened. And I thought I was just gonna order a glass of red wine and, kind of debrief a little bit, or kind of come down and order that creme brulee. And I told him to warm it up a little bit just so it's a little warm on the inside. And I thought I would be able to, treat myself to kind of, forget about what just happened to me in the bathroom. But as I'm sitting at the table, I remember this show when I was young, Hulk, what was it called? The Incredible Hulk, right? And Bruce Banner would go from this cool human being, and boom, you would just hear this this rage, like this heartbeat, right? And so at this time, I felt this charge coming from deep within my body that I had never felt before. And so I excused myself from the table. I said, hey, I gotta go. I gotta go back to the hotel. I gotta get my mind right. And as I walk outside, I see the gentleman who touched me inappropriately, and I actually had to put hands on him. One of my friends happened to be there in that moment, and I'm so thankful. His timing was perfect, because I could be telling this story from a different vantage point, maybe with a glass in the middle, right? And so, after that charge came out, after that rage came out, that trigger came out, all these memories started coming back. All these things that I had basically compressed or pushed down or, told myself that it never happened or it didn't exist, they all started pouring out and coming up at once. At once. At the center of that was a few things. I remember at 11 years old, we were hanging out at a party. It's the first time I saw a shootout. Pow, 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 ducking and running. 11 years old. And then something even more hurtful that I thought really I pushed down, that I thought this memory would never come back. But at 7 years old, I was sexually abused by one of my brother's friends. And this started coming back. And when that memory and those flashbacks started coming back, it did something really did something to me, because I was trying to push it back down. This was a part of my life that I would never talk about. This was a part of my life that really, in my mind, it never happened. And I was embarrassed about it. I was ashamed about it. I was conflicted about it. I thought I was less than a man because it happened from a teenage boy. And so I tried to push it down, but what I did when I pushed it down, it created more PTSD. And I wasn't familiar with PTSD. Have you ever heard of PTSD? Post-traumatic stress disorder? I had no idea I was a candidate for such a thing. I didn't know what it was. All I know is that I could not stop my mind from racing. I lost my appetite. I began to hallucinate. My behavior was off. I did not know who I was. My family did not know who I was. They just knew something was wrong with me. So what did I do? In that moment, I decided to run. I decided to call the Boston Celtics and say, hey, I just can't do it. I can't play basketball anymore. My dream job, the thing that I had aspired to become my entire life, this one moment had triggered and unlocked so much in me that I didn't want to do what I thought I was called to do. The thing that made me my money, the thing that gave me my name, the thing that I was passionate about, the thing that allowed me to take care of my family, the thing that made me feel good about myself, I could not do it anymore. And so I retired from the Boston Celtics and still hadn't sought out treatment. I was in full PTSD mode when I was making these decisions. And so I had to check myself into a mental institution. I spent 4 days there, McLean Hospital in Boston. And in that hospital, I did not get my healing, but I did get my epiphany. I left the hospital after 4 days, and I went directly to therapy. To therapy. I had no idea that I would be able to have the most cathartic experience of my life. In therapy, my first week in therapy, I finally made it to Harvard. I went to Ivy League, but for my therapy, of course, not for my education. But when I got to Harvard, I was in Cambridge, and Dr. Timothy Benson, who we just lost, my therapist, we just lost him last month. We buried him last month, but he really changed my life. And I remember going into his office and, just really opening myself up, I knew I had to do the work. I knew that there was something going on. And so a lot of times as a man, one of the hardest things to do is really be vulnerable and open yourself up, right? Because at a young age, we're told, be tough, suck it up, be a man, you can handle it. Don't let them see you sweat. Don't show any chinks in the armor. We're told to be overly macho even when we're vulnerable. And so I went in there and I really opened up, and it changed my life. I would go to therapy, and I would, some days I would be so angry you would think I was Tupac Shakur, and I'm just me against the world. Some days I would just feel so hopeless. Like, I don't know, how am I gonna recover? I would feel embarrassed and ashamed, like, I let everybody down. Because I was sexually abused by a man, I was angry. I was questioning myself. Why did this happen to me? What is it that I'm projecting? Am I giving off feminine energy? I don't know. What is all these different questions I was asking myself. And I started, just opening up to my therapist, and I would go and I would drop off some of that baggage, and I would get some tools to be able to manage what I was experiencing, what I was feeling, what I was grappling with. And then I would come back and I would do it again the next day. For 3 weeks, I went to therapy 5 days a week, and I would beat the alarm clock up. I would beat the alarm clock up. I would be dressed. I would be at my therapist's office 30 minutes early because I was doing my work. And every time that I would go and I would drop off some of that baggage, I would just like feel a little bit lighter. It's like, hold on, I've been holding on to all this. In 3 weeks, I dropped off about 25 years of baggage. Changed my life. It was a mirror for me because I learned a lot about myself, not just about what I experienced and what I went through, but also about some of the behaviors that came from what I went through and how I would mask my pain by drinking and smoking and being promiscuous, how I could rage with the best of them. I learned a lot about the origins of my behavior in doing my work, and I did not like what I saw. I did not like some of the characteristics that I developed, some of the coping mechanisms that I developed. And so I had to, one, look at myself in the mirror, and I had to learn how to forgive myself for some of the mistakes that I made. Forgiveness was one of the biggest parts of my recovery because when I had so much anger, and a lot of times it'll come out to the people who are closest to you, right? But when I got a big piece of my healing, it was really for the person who abused me when I was young. And me saying, hey, you know what? In my heart, I won't forget this ever. I won't deny this ever. But for my clarity, for my freedom, I had to forgive that person. And it was a real big part of my healing. And so the same way I had to forgive that person, some of the behaviors that I, had over time, I had to ask for forgiveness. And that's humbling when you're trying to get redemption, when you let your family down, when you let your high school sweetheart down, when you let this infrastructure that has been there for you and you fall short. A lot of times as men, that can really play on our psyche. And so I'm so thankful that my family was patient enough for me. I'm so thankful that I had the right therapist who really, helped our entire family. And one of the toughest parts of my healing process, in particular in the therapy process, is sitting across from my wife and my children and hearing my children express how I hurt them with some of the decisions that I made that they didn't know about. Oh, that was a tough one. Oh, it was a tough one. And I couldn't run. I wish I had some Dre Beat headphones because that'll block out all the noise. But it was powerful because I had to hear that. Because I think in order to really truly change, you have to put accountability with your actions and your behaviors and your past. And so I'm so glad, in a sense, that they found out who I was trying to project myself to be, and really who I was. Because now it holds me to a higher standard on a daily basis. So I wanted to kind of, not necessarily break the ice. I started with a little comedy. I wanted to make you laugh a little bit, right, before I just dropped the bombshell on you. But I share this with you because I do believe that, because of your positions and your jobs and your careers, you work with a lot of people and you probably see a lot of different symptoms from our youth. And you can see them acting out, and you can kind of almost see some of the experiences that they have or that they might be enduring. And you can really kind of change and help, their healing process or spark their healing process. So I wanted to kind of share that part of the story. Does anybody have any questions right now about this part of the story? All right, cool. All right, well,
I have one.
Oh, go right
Did you keep going after the 3 weeks?
Are you kidding me?
Okay.
My mental hygiene is the most importance to me.
Okay.
And it's a holistic approach because I don't think therapy in isolation is the only answer. I don't think prayer in isolation is the only answer. I don't think, overworking out is the only answer. I think you have to find a concoction of things that work for you. So some of the tools that I use is prayer, affirmations. I like to go outside and walk. I like to play with my children. I like to date my wife. I do yoga. I still go to therapy, probably every 3 months now. Though I do have to find a new therapist. My therapist just passed away. So I have to find a new therapist. I'm a little nervous about that. He's the one person who I shared everything with. So where do I start? Like, do I have to, start at rock bottom? And so all those different things. So I believe that we all have to have a routine for your mental and your emotional health. And I believe that's holistic, and I believe that's balanced. And I think you have to actively work for that and seek that every day. Thank you for breaking the ice. Any other questions? All right, cool. Well, let's go on to the healing process. The healing process. It was a process. One of the hardest things for me to do was to allow my children to, one, feel what they feel. I wanted to just go away. All right, forgive me, let's go. It was a process to regaining the trust of my wife and my children. There was a very big process for me. So if you're going through something, I want you to think about being patient. Being patient, having that stick-to-itiveness and understanding that, a delay is not a denial. Just because something doesn't happen instantly doesn't mean it won't happen gradually. And I think that's one of the things that I developed throughout this therapy process is resilience. Being able to, stick to it and keep going for those objectives. And I'm so glad I did, because my family, we're in the best place that we have ever been in. So, as I come to a close, I know I had 20 minutes. I really wanted to be able to interact a little bit more, because there might be some things that you see, that you're going through, that I might be able to share. I know for me, in some of the work that I do, I work for the NBA Players Association. We're the first sports league to have a mental wellness program. Woo! Yeah. And, this year, I'm so proud that we had over 50 guys get therapy. 50 guys, the most macho guys you will ever meet. And they are really embracing this mental health thing. And so I would share with you that, we all go through these different tests in our lives. We all go through these different challenges. And I think we go through our tests in order to get to our testimonies. See, I thought the most embarrassing thing about my life, the thing that, would a lot of times categorize you and tar and feather you and put you in a category, oh, he's crazy. He a lot of times you can get thrown away or cast aside. But when you do your work and you heal from it and you embrace your experience, you could unlock these passions that you have locked deep down inside. You might just find your purpose. Had I not embraced what I experienced, what I went through, what I saw, what I encountered, I would not be doing the work that I'm doing right now. I could have missed my calling had I not embraced the pain that I went through. So if you're afraid of doing your work, I understand. I've been there before. But like I tell a lot of people, I had to hit rock bottom in order to do my work. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for the next generation. I want us to be a little bit more proactive in our mental health approach. So if you could take anything away from this conversation today, I don't know what might resonate with you. I believe the biggest room, this Gantt Hotel is nice, I love it, it's beautiful, but I believe the biggest room in this place, the biggest room in your life is the room for improvement. I believe we can all get better. That means if we have anger issues, that means if our body is sending us signals about anxiety, that means if we are lacking confidence, that means if we don't like the way we look, or we don't like our hair, or lack thereof, you can get better. And I'm living proof of that. And I try and share this message everywhere I go. And I'm so thankful that Christina thought that I would be a good fit for this event, because I feel the spirit in Aspen. I know that there's been 5 suicides in this community in the last 10 days. I know that there are challenges, that we all go through. And one of the biggest lessons my children taught me, I used to always say, y'all haven't been through anything. Y'all didn't grow up in the hood. Y'all never seen gunshots. Y'all never been through this. And boy, was I wrong. It does not matter where you are. You could be in a place as beautiful as Aspen, or in the hood like Fort Lauderdale, like where I grew up. Your challenges are real, and they are unique to you. No matter what community you're from, what race, what religion you are, we all go through things. And so we have to we have to, I know that's a strong word, but we gotta consider doing our work so that we're better for our families, for our spouses, for our children, for our community, at our job. You deserve peace. When I started doing my work, I started sleeping better. Wow. The older you get, sleep is like harder to come by. So if I don't do my routine, I could really be out of sync. Getting a lot of that stuff, not having to hide, not having to be double-minded, not being, having my mind occupied in all these different places, it allows me to be more centered, more grounded, more present. So the food tastes a little bit better, the wine hits my body a little bit harder, all those different things. So I want to encourage you to do your work, no matter how successful you are. I was a millionaire when I had my breakdown. It doesn't matter about your financial state. It doesn't matter about any of those things. You deserve healing, so I want that for you. All right? Again, my name is Keyon Dooling. I would love to be able to end this with a couple questions so I can interact, so I'm not talking at you. I can talk with you a little bit. So if y'all have 2 or 3 questions for me, I would like you to shoot them out. Go right here.
I'm just interested if you could talk a little bit more about, like, how, if you were talking about how you projected who you want, like, one thing that you also were, there's like who you were versus who you wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
How did you figure out like who you wanted to be? Yeah. Or did you already know that?
Well, I think right? But I think, I gotta be honest, like sometimes with money and fame comes different opportunities, and unfortunately I wasn't strong enough to not always indulge, right? So when I would go out on the road, I wouldn't be who I was at home. I would be a little bit more loose, and just because they didn't see it or know about it, you know what I mean? I thought I was okay. It was a learned behavior. I saw men in my family like that. I saw it through the music. I saw it was about that. And so I think we have some work to do emotionally, right? Because a lot of times men can really resonate with anger, we can rage, pleasure, you can do that, right? But there's so many emotions in between, and a lot of times when we feel these different emotions and we don't like the way we feel, we could change our mood by either drinking, smoking, spending, different things to, not have to feel that emotion. So I really, speak a lot to men, specifically when I speak, because I think that there's a lot of growth opportunities for us. I think, our women have put in more work around their mental health, around their emotional health than us, and we gotta catch up, you know what I mean? So our families could be sterling and not just be surviving. I wanna see our families thrive. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
What was the quote you mentioned before you started talking about being a witness or testimony?
Oh yeah, you like that one, Andy?
Yeah.
You like that one? All right, Andy has an amazing story as well, man. Thank you for sharing that with me. But I say you go through these different tests in order to get to your testimony. And when you go through your test and you get your testimony and you become comfortable with it, then you go out and speak about it, then you become a witness to help people who experience things like you. And that's one of the biggest things for me, that when I really wrapped my mind around that I was sexually abused, I didn't want to talk about it. But my wife encouraged me. She's like, no, you gotta talk about this. You gotta prevent this from happening because you're not the only one. And so it's really important for me to share my story so that other men who might have gone through it can get their healing on the back end. But also, if I share my story with the youth, they can maybe prevent some of those situations. They can know what a healthy touch is. They can know certain defense mechanisms to maybe, try and avoid putting themselves in that position. So thank you for that. Go right ahead.
Well, first, I just want to thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you
It's
for
very
listening.
inspirational. And I kind of just wanted to ask, what was it about your therapist? Like, what qualities did he have that really brought everything out in you and really helped change your life?
Okay, let me not get emotional.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You're supposed to.
You know what? You're absolutely right. I always tell men this, like, we were born with these tear ducts, but we're always told, suck it up, don't cry, right? But if we're born and we're not crying, they'll slap us on the butt to make sure we cry. It's our first language since we were little. But I think it was his disposition. Our faiths were aligned. I think his age played a part in it. His experience, he was a former athlete. He was a great listener. He had, therapy would be different. It would never just be a dull moment. He had these exercises. So not only did he feel and understand and listen well, but he was able to give me tools, and he would hold me accountable. When I would, try and use my power or my influence, he would help me recognize my flaws instead of telling me what my flaws were. And I really respected that. In particular around financial control. Like, I didn't realize I was financially controlling a lot of my relationships because I contributed to their lives. And so I had to learn, okay, maybe I am controlling in that sense, and that's a work area for me. I think those were the qualities that I'm gonna miss about it.
Do you think that the new players entering the NBA get enough support? It sounds like you're making a lot of changes for the group that you work with. Do you feel like, that's such a big deal to go into this field and have all this money and have baggage or whatever people come into their new lives with?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have amazing resources in the NBA. It's a great game, and we've done a very good job over the last 20 years of doing programming around, our players, whether that's financial literacy, whether that's, continuing education. We have a program for pretty much everything, but this mental wellness program, I think, is really instrumental to all of that. It kind of connects to all of that, because when you're mentally and emotionally in a good state, you can make better financial decisions. You can manage your relationships better. You can be more accountable and more present, in your day-to-day activities. So yeah, I think we're heading in the right direction. But as an athlete, you basically have to be perfect at every intersection in order to get through. And so most of the guys are wearing their journeys, right? They have not had time to process their journey. They're too busy becoming. And that's like a lot of us, you know what I mean? Especially as we continue our education and we have to work and we're spending 50, 60 hours in our work week everywhere. It's hard to get that you time. But I had to learn that balance. It's so important that I can do this and that, not this or that. I have to custom my life for my health, my mental health, my emotional health. Because if I have all the success in the world and I'm angry and I'm not spending time with my wife, what is it all for? So yeah, we're on the right track. Thank you. All right, this looks like we're good. So I want to leave you with this. I had this great imagination when I was young, and I still have this great imagination. And a lot of times I would, just find myself visualizing about my future and what I wanted to do and what I wanted to become in my life. And so I would spend many hours at the park by myself. It would be no scoreboard, no crowd, but I would be out there like 3, 2, 1, dueling for the game, and the crowd goes crazy. And I would be able to hear the crowd, and I would be able to see the shot clock, but it really wasn't there. I had this ability to visualize, and I still use it to this day. What I'm doing now, I visualize this moment. And so I don't know what tactics or techniques you use to manifest some of your goals, some of your dreams, or give space for your creative intelligence. But I want to leave you with this. I believe if you can close your eyes and visualize it, see what it is you want to do, what it is you want to accomplish, what it is you want to create. If you can close your eyes and visualize it, you can open your eyes and realize it, work towards that dream, that goal, that creativity that you feel on the inside. So save a piece for that, man. We need that, especially as we age. Again, my name is Keyon Dooling. You can follow me on Instagram. If you're a reader, you can get my book. It's called What's Driving You. Thank you again for allowing me in your community.